Hi, my name is Viviana Fong, and today we'll be having a therapy session with Doris.
What is the REBT and ABC model? REBT is a cognitive approach that helps people change their irrational beliefs into rational beliefs. The ABC model is a format that integrates well with REBT as it states the premises of the client's irrational beliefs such as their feelings, thoughts, events, and behavior. All cognitive behavioral approaches share the same basic characteristics and assumptions as traditional behavior therapy. Although the approaches are quite diverse, they do share these attributes. Therapists help clients to examine the manner in which they understand themselves and their world and to experiment with new ways of behaving. Our case comes to Doris, who comes to a community counseling center at the recommendation of a friend, who is concerned that Doris intends to leave her husband and child. Her friend thinks that she is confused and needs professional help as soon as possible. A little bit about Doris. Doris was born and reared in Arkansas. Her father is a reformed alcoholic who drank heavily when the client was a child. Both parents are religious, and the father is described as a strict fundamentalist. Doris has a younger brother who is now an enlisted man in the Army and is described as the family favorite. She says her parents were stricter with her than with their son and emphasized the importance of marriage as well as a woman's dependent and inferior role in that relationship. Doris dropped out of high school in the 10th grade. She worked as a manicurist in Arkansas until marrying and moving to Kentucky 3 years ago. She then worked as a waitress. Her husband says that they have had no fights or arguments during their 3-year marriage, and the client agrees. 6 months ago, Doris gave birth to a baby boy. There were no medical complications, and she maintains that she adjusted well to the baby. But she reports just not being able to feel much of anything except tired. 2 months ago, she and her husband moved to Houston so that he can join an amateur band. She began working as a cashier at a drugstore. In the course of her work, she began to have multiple affairs with coworkers and even customers. At the same time, although her husband is happy with the band, he has not been able to find a steady job. He asked her to try to find a second job or to take overtime hours at the drugstore. Doris is considering leaving her husband and her child. Doris. She's attending her first counseling session. She is a 22-year-old who is married and has a baby boy. She was raised in a strict fundamentalist home with her father being an alcoholic and her parents showing favoritism to their son. Both parents emphasize the importance of marriage as well as the woman's dependent and inferior role in the relationship. High school dropout, works in a drugstore while her husband plays in an amateur band. Doris is engaging in casual affairs with coworkers and even customers. Has intentions of leaving her child and her husband. Doris is a client who is lacking a sense of responsibility and is confused about this type of role in the marriage she is supposed to take. Doris and her future decisions are the primary focus to change. The ABC framework. This model provides a useful tool for understanding the client's feelings, thoughts, events, and behavior. A is the existence of a fact or an activating event of an individual. C is the emotional and behavioral consequence or reaction of the individual. A does not cause C. Instead, B, which is the person's belief about A, largely creates C, the emotional reaction. ABC framework continued. Ellis maintains the beliefs that are what mainly cause point C, not the actual event of the person. Human beings are largely responsible for creating their own emotional reactions and disturbances. The heart of REBT is to show people how they can change their irrational beliefs that directly cause their emotional consequence. After A, B, and C comes D, which is the disputing event. 3 components of this disputing process are detecting irrational beliefs, shoulds and musts, debating against dysfunctional beliefs and argue themselves out of it by acting against them, and discriminate irrational beliefs to rational ones. Basically, the technique of cognitive restructuring involves helping the clients learn to monitor their self-talk, identify maladaptive self-talk, and substitute adaptive self-talk for the negative self-talk. The goal of therapy is to help Doris minimize her emotional disturbances by changing her irrational behavior to rational behavior. With time, she should be able to acquire a more realistic and workable lifestyle rather than focusing on selfish needs. This will help Doris to move forward from her past. Techniques used will be disputing irrational beliefs, doing cognitive homework, changing one's language, and role-playing. Why this therapy for Doris? These techniques should help Doris in evaluating her irrational beliefs about marriage as taught from her childhood and effectively enhance her future life decisions and not leave her family.
So, Doris, what brings you in today for our therapy session?
Well, my friend was actually the one who dragged me in to come. My whole issue is that I have decided to leave my husband and my son. I don't see myself to be a stable mother right now. I was raised in a strict and religious fundamentalist home, with my father being a raging alcoholic and my mother being a housewife, meeting every one of my father's needs. Throughout my childhood, my parents always favored my prestigious younger army brother more than me. I was taught the importance of marriage as far as being a woman who was dependent and played an inferior role in a marriage relationship. I dropped out of high school in the 10th grade and got a license as a manicurist. During that time, I met my now husband and moved to Kentucky about 3 years ago. 6 months later, we got pregnant and I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. My husband does not work. Instead, he plays in an amateur band while I slave as a cashier in a drugstore.
REBT is a framework known as the ABC model. The model provides us with an activating event, a belief which creates the activating event, and an emotional and behavioral consequence, which is caused by the belief. In your case, the activating event is your plan of leaving your husband and child, which is created by your belief of your childhood upbringing, and therefore your belief is causing the future consequences of what will happen to you as well as what will happen to your husband and child if you do decide to leave them. You've mentioned that you don't see yourself as a stable mother. Can you explain why? Also, taking that you were raised in a strict upbringing home and learning that you are to play the inferior role in your marriage where your husband is supposed to be the breadwinner. Now, all that has fallen back. What is your reaction to that?
Well, my husband and I don't really talk about anything that pertains to our marriage. We basically just coexist with each other. Our marriage is no variety. Although I really do love my husband and I have unconditional love for my son, I've been so caught up in working so much and being the breadwinner of the family that I've dwelled in having some casual affairs with coworkers and even customers. It's like I want to break free and leave my husband and my child, but at the same time I can't imagine how my husband would be able to support himself and our son. My actions have made me wonder if I'm even fit to be a stable enough mother to our child. If I can even provide a healthy life to him and attend to his needs. Not to mention the fact that my husband expects me to work extra hours and not realize that I have other priorities to take care of, like feeding and being there for our son, as well as fulfilling housework duties. The weight of pressure is beginning to take a toll on me, and it's making me want to escape from my problems and my family for good.
Well, it sounds like there is an underlying cause as to why your beliefs about some past experiences or past upbringing is affecting the consequences of your future. Can you please elaborate more towards that and at the same time really think about the grand choice you're willing to make and how it will not only affect your family but most importantly yourself?
Like I stated before, I was brought up in a strict home where marriage was strongly emphasized for the woman to play the inferior role and basically be the background of it all. In my case, it's the opposite. I've had a firm belief of the way I was raised, and I think now I see how I'm letting it affect my present life. I suppose I'm being a bit selfish with my wants and not focusing on my main priorities, which is my beloved son, and also having some sort of communication with my husband, such as discussing our equal contribution with working and our roles as parents. I feel like I compromised a lot. My husband could have done the same when it comes to his band. I've been having thoughts about leaving my child and my husband. I think that's the best solution, and it will make my life a whole lot easier.
Alright, well, it's understandable in the way you've been raised and having to look forward to a marriage where you've been taught to play a background role and in the end being the opposite of what you've always expected. Regardless of your upbringing, can you see yourself changing your perspective on your beliefs and really think that if leaving your family will be your ultimate choice?
Thinking about it is a lot easier than done. I've let my past beliefs get the best of me.
Well, okay. Doris, you're a young woman. You should have a happy life ahead of you and for your family as well. And as you stated that your beliefs about your past upbringing has had a dramatic effect on you, I would like for you to make some rearrangements in your life with these techniques I will provide for you. Here is what I would like for you to do over the next 2 weeks until we meet again. First, I would like for you to dispute your irrational beliefs and try to make some sense out of them by making them rational. Focus on the shoulds and musts and engage yourself into a positive way of thinking until you no longer hold an irrational belief. Second, I advise you to do some homework every day by making a list of all the problems you've dealt with on that day and dispute your beliefs on these problems. Third, if you can try to change your language by acquiring more positive statements into your communication skills. Don't look at life through a rose-colored lens, but look at life through a clear glass. Using the proper words can change your whole perspective on the meaning of life. And lastly, engage in some role play by putting yourself in your husband's shoes or even in your son's shoes and see how they would act and feel if you were to ever leave them behind. The pollen of change is in your hands, Doris. Can you stop that and then we'll do the bye thing?